For Chloe Carter, hope was a flickering candle in a hurricane. A single mother with a sick child and dwindling funds, she was one step away from losing everything. In a moment of pure desperation, she sent a text for help to a wrong number. That mistake would connect her to Elias Vance, a reclusive billionaire haunted by a loss so profound it had hollowed out his soul. He had the money to solve all her problems, but he was hiding a secret that made him her last terrifying hope, and could also become her greatest heartbreak. The blue glow of the phone screen was the only light in Chloe Carter's tiny Seattle apartment. It was 2 a.m. Rain slicked the windows, mirroring the silent tears on her cheeks. In her arms, her 8-month-old daughter, Mia, whimpered in her sleep, a small pain sound that tore through Chloe's heart with practiced efficiency. The doctor's words echoed in her mind. Failure to thrive. A degenerative condition. We need more tests. Tests cost money Chloe didn't have. Her savings were gone. Her part-time job as a graphic designer barely covered the rent, and her landlord had already posted a late notice. She had one last resort. Swallowing her pride, she typed a message to her brother, her fingers trembling. "Mark, I'm so sorry to ask. I'm out of formula and Mia's special medication is due. I just need $50. I'll pay you back on Friday, I swear." She hit send before she could second-guess herself, closing her eyes against the crushing weight of her own failure. Across the city, in a sterile penthouse that felt more like a mausoleum, Elias Vance stared at the skyline. Sleep was a luxury he hadn't afforded himself in years. His phone buzzed, a rare intrusion into his self-imposed isolation. He glanced at the message from an unknown number. It was clearly a mistake. His first instinct, the one honed by years of building a tech empire, was to delete and block. It was logical, efficient. But something in the raw, unvarnished plea made him pause. Mia's special medication. His breath caught in his chest. His own daughter, his Lily, had needed special medication. He typed a quick reply. "I think you have the wrong number." A minute later, a frantic apology appeared. "I'm so sorry, please ignore that." Elias stared at the screen, the ghost of a memory stirring within him. He did something he hadn't done in 5 years. He chose to engage.
"Is your baby gonna be okay?"
"We'll manage. Sorry to bother you."
"I could help. No strings attached."
Chloe scoffed. No strings. She knew better. But then, another message came.
"I had a daughter once. Her name was Lily. I know what it's like to be desperate. Let me help, please."
That one word, Liddy, broke through her defenses. It felt too specific, too real to be a scam. With a sense of fatalistic hope, she sent him her payment app username. Seconds later, her phone buzzed. A notification. This stranger hadn't sent $50, he had sent $5,000. For the first time in months, Chloe felt the suffocating pressure on her chest ease. $5,000. It was a lifeline. It meant rent, it meant groceries. Most importantly, it meant she could schedule the next round of diagnostic tests for Mia. She sent a tearful, rambling thank you message to the stranger, who simply replied, gently, "Take care of your little girl." The next day, Chloe was at the hospital, her heart aflutter with cautious optimism. Optimistic, "This will allow us to do the full genetic panel," the doctor explained, his face more hopeful than she'd ever seen him. Hopeful. If we can identify the specific marker, we can explore treatment options. Chloe held Mia tight, comforting. "It's going to be okay, baby. Mommy's going to make it okay." The relief was intoxicating. She allowed herself to imagine a future where Mia wasn't in constant pain, a future where her daughter could crawl and laugh and live a normal life. For one beautiful day, it felt like her prayers had been answered by a mysterious, benevolent stranger. The hope lasted exactly 72 hours. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon. It was the doctor. His voice was low, heavy with a practiced sympathy that did nothing to soften the blow. "Chloe, the results are back. It's a rare genetic disorder, LVS syndrome." He explained the prognosis in clinical terms that all sounded like a death sentence. Degenerative, no known cure. Most children with the condition didn't live past their 2nd birthday. The world tilted on its axis. Chloe's carefully constructed hope shattered into a million pieces. The $5,000 from the stranger, once a symbol of a miracle, now felt like a cruel joke. It wasn't enough to save her daughter. It was only enough to give her a name for the thing that was stealing her away. That night, She sat in the dark, Mia sleeping in her lap, the silence of the apartment pressing in on her. There were no more options. No one else to call. This was it, the end of the road. Just as she was about to surrender to the despair, her phone buzzed. It was him, the stranger. Elias, his name now appeared on her phone.
I was just thinking about you and your daughter. I hope everything is all right.
Chloe stared at the message, a bitter, hysterical laugh bubbling in her throat. Bitterly, hysterically, "All right? Nothing was all right?" In a fit of grief and rage, she typed back, her thumbs moving furiously.
Desperate, everything is not all right. Angry, the money you sent? It just paid for a death sentence. They gave her a name for it. LVS syndrome. There's no cure, there's no hope. So thank you for your charity, but it was all for nothing.
She expected silence. She expected him to block her. Instead, his reply came almost instantly. It was a single, chilling question that made her blood run cold.
What did you say the name of the syndrome was?
Before Chloe could even process his strange question, another message arrived. It wasn't a text, it was a formal email from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line read, "An invitation from the Elias Vance Foundation." Her heart hammered against her ribs. The Elias Vance Foundation. She knew that name. It was a world-renowned pediatric research organization, a beacon of hope for families with children suffering from rare diseases. The email was a personalized invitation to a private consultation at their Seattle headquarters. It mentioned that her daughter's case had been flagged for review due to its unique markers. It was impossible, a coincidence too great to believe. A flicker of suspicion warred with her desperation. How could they know? But what choice did she have? It was the only glimmer of light in an all-consuming darkness. 2 days later, she walked into the Foundation's gleaming, state-of-the-art facility. Mia nestled in her carrier. She was led to a private office where a man stood with his back to her, looking out at the city. When he turned, Chloe's breath caught. It was a face she'd seen on the covers of business magazines. Elias Vance, the tech billionaire, the Foundation's founder, and the stranger from her phone.
It was you. The money, the email, this was all you.
Please, sit down, Chloe.
Don't tell me to sit down. You lied to me. You manipulated me. What is this? Some kind of sick game for a bored billionaire.
It's not a game. LVS syndrome. It stands for Elias Vance syndrome. It was named after my daughter. She died from it 5 years ago.
The air left Chloe's lungs. She sank into a chair, her anger evaporating, replaced by a profound, shared horror. Elias moved to a screen on the wall and projected an image. It was a photograph of a beautiful little girl with his same grey eyes, smiling, despite the medical tubes that were a part of her small life. "There is no cure," Elias said, his voice thick with unshed tears. "But there is a treatment. An experimental one that my foundation developed. It extended my daughter's life by a year, a beautiful, precious year." He finally met Chloe's gaze, his eyes pleading. Pleading, desperate. "It's not approved, it's high risk. But it's the only chance Mia has." The world, which had been black and white, suddenly exploded into terrifying color. Hope. It was a dangerous, seductive poison, but Chloe drank it down. The next few weeks were a blur of medical consultations, paperwork, and cautious optimism. Elias was there for every step. He didn't just fund the process, he was intimately involved, explaining complex medical jargon, sitting with Chloe in sterile waiting rooms, and even holding Mia with a gentle, practiced ease that broke Chloe's heart. For the first time, Chloe saw the man behind the myth. He wasn't a cold billionaire. He was a grieving father, channeling his pain into a singular purpose. A fragile trust began to form between them, bonded by their shared, specific nightmare. The preliminary results of Mia's compatibility tests were positive. She was a perfect candidate for the trial. The doctors were hopeful. Elias was hopeful. And Chloe allowed herself to believe in a miracle. She started to imagine a future again. A future that, strangely, included this sad, quiet man who understood her pain, without a single word needing to be spoken. The day the treatment was set to begin, disaster struck. The Foundation's board of directors, spooked by a recent lawsuit involving another experimental trial, called an emergency meeting. Elias's second-in-command, a pragmatic, risk-averse man named Caldwell, argued forcefully against proceeding. "The risk is too high, Elias," he stated, his voice echoing in the cold boardroom. "The preliminary data isn't strong enough. If something goes wrong, the liability could bankrupt the Foundation. We can't risk everything for one child." Elias fought back, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a fiery desperation. But the board sided with Caldwell. They voted to suspend the trial indefinitely, pending further review. The decision was final. Elias had to deliver the news to Chloe himself. He found her in Mia's hospital room, humming softly to her daughter. When he told her, the fragile hope in her eyes died. It wasn't a dramatic collapse. It was a quiet, devastating extinguishment.
So, that's it? After all this? After you gave me hope? It's just over?
Chloe, I'm so sorry. I thought...
You thought what? That your money could fix everything? Get out. Please, just get out.
He left, the sound of her quiet, broken sobs following him down the hallway. He had failed. Again. He hadn't just failed to save Mia, he had managed to break her mother's heart in the process. For 2 days, Chloe refused to answer his calls. Elias was adrift in a sea of guilt. He had built an empire, but he couldn't overcome a boardroom vote. He had promised this woman hope, and all he had delivered was more pain. But as he sat in his daughter's perfectly preserved room, staring at her empty bed, a new resolve hardened within him. He would not let another little girl die because of bureaucracy. He would not fail another family. He called his personal wealth manager and his top lawyer. His plan was insane. It was reckless. It would put his entire personal fortune at risk. He was going to defy the board, fund the treatment himself, and move it to a private clinic in Switzerland that operated outside the FDA's jurisdiction. It was a desperate, all-or-nothing gamble. He went to the hospital, bracing himself for Chloe's anger. He found her packing Mia's things, her face a pale, determined mask.
Chloe, don't leave. I have a plan.
I don't want to hear it, Elias. I'm taking Mia home. I'm going to make her comfortable. That's all I can do now.
No, it's not. I'm taking you to Switzerland, tonight. I've chartered a medical flight. The doctors are waiting. I'm funding the entire thing myself.
Chloe stared at him, her eyes searching his for any hint of deception. She saw only a desperate, reckless sincerity that mirrored her own.
Why? Why would you risk everything for us?
Because when my Lily was dying, I would have burned down the world to give her one more day. I can't let another father's daughter slip away while I do nothing.
The flight to Switzerland was a blur of medical equipment and hushed conversations. The private clinic, nestled in a serene alpine valley, was a world away from the sterile bureaucracy of the Seattle hospital. For weeks, Mia underwent the treatment. There were good days, where she smiled and her color returned, and there were terrifying days, where her fever spiked and her small body convulsed. Through it all, Elias never left their side. He and Chloe became a silent, efficient team, tracking medications, talking to doctors, and taking turns sleeping in the chair by Mia's bed. The walls between them crumbled, replaced by a deep, unspoken intimacy. One night, as they sat watching Mia sleep, her breathing finally even, Chloe reached out and took his hand.
You never talk about her. About Lily.
It hurts too much. I feel like if I say her name too much, she'll fade away completely.
She won't. Tell me one thing about her. One happy memory.
Elias was quiet for a long time. Then, a small, sad smile touched his lips.
She loved the rain. She would stand at the window and try to count the drops. She said it was the sky, crying happy tears.
Tears welled in Chloe's eyes. She squeezed his hand, and he didn't pull away. In that quiet room, thousands of miles from home, 2 grieving souls found a moment of peace, not by forgetting their pain, but by finally sharing it. And then, The miracle they had gambled everything on began to happen. Mia's condition stabilized. Then it improved. She started gaining weight. The pained whimpers were replaced by happy gurgles. One afternoon, she reached for Elias's finger and held on tight, a strength in her grip that hadn't been there before. The Swiss doctors were astounded, calling it a breakthrough. The news of their success, however, had traveled back to Seattle. The Foundation's board, led by Caldwell, was furious. They saw Elias's rogue actions as a massive liability. They called an emergency vote. While Chloe was celebrating Mia's first real laugh, Elias received an email. He had been removed as CEO of his own company and chairman of his own foundation. He had won the battle for Mia, but in doing so he had lost his entire empire. He didn't tell Chloe right away. For a few days he simply basked in the warmth of Mia's recovery, watching Chloe's face, once etched with worry, now radiant with joy. He was no longer a billionaire, he was just a man. And strangely, it didn't feel like a loss. When they returned to Seattle, the reality of their new situation set in. The penthouse was gone, sold to cover legal fees. The Foundation, now under Caldwell's control, had publicly distanced itself from them. The press portrayed Elias as a reckless, disgraced tycoon. He had nothing left, except them. They moved into Chloe's small apartment, the one he had saved from foreclosure months earlier. The role reversal was stark. Chloe, now working full-time again as Mia's health allowed, became the provider. Elias, the former titan of industry, found himself learning how to navigate a world without infinite resources. He learned how to cook, he learned how to do laundry, he learned how to sit in a park and simply be. And he learned how to be a father. He was there for Mia's first solid food, her first word, her first wobbly attempt to stand. He wasn't a benefactor anymore. He was just Dad.
I'm sorry, Chloe. For all of this, I dragged you into my world and then I lost it.
Elias, look at me. You didn't lose anything that mattered. We're here. Mia is healthy. What you did, it wasn't reckless. It was love. And that's worth more than any empire.